Howdy, Fuzzy Biker here. There's La Rosa, my 2021 Royal Enfield Himalayan, and I just clicked over 10,000 miles on that hot rod yesterday. I'm pretty proud of that. And I thought I'd give you some insight into this kind of a motorcycle and what it's good for, and tell you what this bike is, what I've added to it, how I use it. I have a lot of fun on that thing. What it isn't, what I don't do with it, and what I found it doesn't do very well. And then I'm going to finish by letting you know what I think it's capable of doing that I have not done with it yet. Things that I plan to do in the future. It's just a beautiful machine here in the weeds. I know it needs a bath, but I just love this bike. I've had a lot of motorcycles in my life, and this is by far my favorite motorcycle. Spoiler alert, right? All right, let's get into it. Wahoo! We've made our way to Littlefield Campground. This is in the southern part of Audubon County. There's my Royal Enfield Himalayan. So what is a Royal Enfield Himalayan? It's a 411cc, air-cooled, oil-cooled, there's the oil cooler, single cylinder, 2-valve, overhead cam, single overhead cam, hot rod, kind of ADV style bike. It's got a 5-speed transmission, about a 58-inch wheelbase, plenty of suspension travel, about 7.9 on the front and about 7 on the rear. Ground clearance, look at all that mud. Ground clearance is about 8.5 inches, 8.6 I believe. The engine produces 24, a little over 24 horsepower and about 23.5 foot-pounds of torque, which is adequate for this bike. It actually, I enjoy it a lot. It will do all kinds of good stuff. The seat height is 30.5 inches. I think that's something like 800 millimeters. So it's not a terribly high seat. The engine. The front tire is this is one of the key features that makes this bike so good, is this whole front end. You know, it's got this gigantic 21-inch, by gigantic I mean tall, 21-inch tire. That allows you to just run over ruts and bumps and just all kinds of things. You combine that with the 7.9 inches of suspension travel, and it's just a dream. The back, I think it's a 17. Yeah, 17. It's a 120/90 17 on the back, and I like that. And I've got a Dunlop Trail Max Mission tire on the back that I added to that, and that tire's got close to 6,000 miles. I got 5,800 miles on that tire, so it's not too bad, is it, for 58? The front tire is still stock, so I've got 10,200 miles, something like that. It's still okay. I've got a new one at home, a Trail Max Mission also. The front brake, I believe, is either a 320 or 300. It's a Bibri, 2-piston caliper on the front, floating caliper, anti-lock, ABS on the front, ABS on the back. I think the back is a 240 millimeter single pot floating caliper. Monoshock, of course, a linked monoshock, so there's a, it's progressive linkage. I don't know if you can see that. Let's go to the other side, right down there. And that's adjustable. You can get a longer link to lower the bike and a shorter link to raise the bike, and people do that. And they make some really good aftermarket options for this bike too, as far as shocks go. Coming up here, we've got this. When I first saw this dash, I didn't care for it, but it's actually a very nice analog dash. Speedometer, tachometer, fuel gauge, a real fuel gauge. This is a compass, never works. Got a battery light, which I think every motorcycle should have. It's got a trip A, trip B, odometer, of course, gear indicator, which is very nice. This is one of the few motorcycles I've ever had with a gear indicator, and I like it. There's a clock behind here, but I've got this one on there because I was having trouble with my clock, and the factory clock is also very small. It also has an ambient temperature gauge right there, which ironically they put the sensor for the temperature gauge back here somewhere, so it's only right when you turn the bike on. After that, it's about 8 or 10 degrees off. So what have I done to this bike? Well, let's start with the front. Add-ons that I've made are, first time I took it in mud, I got enough mud on here that the fender seized up and the front tire wouldn't turn anymore, so that was a mess. So you need to I raised this up, and that helped a lot. I've still been able to manage to get it stuck. If you do that, you start going down the road and you'll see rocks come flying out and they'll come back at you. So I went and got one of these grills with a bumblebee in it, and yeah, it looks cool. What the heck. By the way, notice the fork boots. Isn't that a nice touch? The bike did not have these handguards on. I ordered these Royal Enfield handguards, and I really like them. And one of the things about them is, see that? They clear the windshield. If I had the like a bark busters, I'd have to something here and I'd limit the amount of movement my windshield would have. This is a California Scientific windshield, Calci. I got that from baxtercycle.com, and it's very large. I think from here to here is about 21 inches, you know, from top to bottom. 22 inches, sorry, and about from here to here is about 14 inches. And I like it a lot. It's a great windshield. I had gone on a 370-mile ride one day and it just beat the crap out of me. And I decided I needed something like this, and this is the windshield I found. And it's very well made, it's thick, it's everything worked good on it. The mounting system was not adequate here, so I had to rebuild that. You know, this mounting system for the original windshield was like this tall. So, you know, I had to do some beefing up here. And also when I got the windshield, these pulled out on the bottom and the whole thing lay flat, so I had to rebuild these. But other than that, it's perfect. Mirrors, I put these mirror extenders on here. I was getting about half my shoulder in the mirror, so I put these mirror extenders on here. That helped a lot. Of course, I added this bag. Coming back here, I got these frames here from baxtercycle.com, and those are the smaller frames. They make the larger ones. Everybody always gets the bigger ones, but I don't like those because they came all the way back here. You had to relocate your blinkers. They were for bigger bags. I did not want the bigger bags. I wanted small bags. I had, you know, my plans were not to take this on a 100-day trip. It was to take it on day trips, just single day trips. So I got these little bags off Amazon. I have the same bags on my Harley. They work very good. If I drop the bike, which I will at some point, they will just crush, and they're cheap and easy to replace, so no problem there. Another thing that I added that are really important are these air tire sensors, air pressure sensors. Those are Fobo 2, I think is what they're called, F-O-B-O. I got them off Amazon for $100. Got them on both the front and the back. So I come out to my motorcycle, I turn my phone on, hit the app, and it tells me my air pressure on both the front and the back tire. If I leave my phone on, I used to keep my phone up here, but I don't anymore. Keep it in my pocket. Life's more enjoyable that way. If you were to have catastrophic air loss or something, your phone go crazy. Other things that I've added. Here's a really good one. A Bigfoot foot. First I added the small foot. The original foot for this bike is so small, it's about that big, just not adequate. So then I bought this thing here, which is about this size, and that was pretty good, and I liked it. But then I made myself this big foot. See how big that is? It's almost the size of my hand. And that, I can park this bike anywhere, and it'll stand up because of that. Next stop, I'll tell you about how I use this bike, the kind of problems I've had with this bike. I've had some. What I've done about those problems and those things, and how it's worked out for me. We made our way to Elkhorn Creek Recreation Area. So how do I use this bike? The main way I use this motorcycle is as a back road gravel bike. I'd say 60–70% of what I do is I leave my home, I get out on the edge of town, and I find a gravel road, and I just hit that hard, and I just go mile after mile on those things, gravel and dirt, and the bike soaks it up. It just does it really well. This thing has got this almost 8-inch suspension, 7.9 inch on the front, 7 on the back, 8.5 inches, over 8.5 inches of ground clearance on the bottom. It just has an excellent suspension for Iowa gravel roads and Iowa dirt roads. Our gravel roads, things that we'll run into there are a lot of washboarding and stuff like that, and this bike will just roll down those roads without a problem. The other thing I use it on is these Iowa dirt roads. We call them Class B, and those roads are rarely ever used. They're usually dirt. Counties will work them over in the spring and in the fall. The farmers need them in the spring to get to their fields, and in the fall to get back to their fields to harvest. And you get a lot of rutting and a lot of really rough roads and a lot of wet spots and things like that. And this bike eats that up too. This big 21-inch wheel on the front, I talked about that earlier. It just right through everything with ruts. It just goes, you literally bounce over these things. The suspension is so good, and the bike's very controllable. I'd say, like I said, 60–70% of what I ride is probably those kind of roads. Exploring, you know, seeing what's out there. Those kind of fun things, you know, going to these little parks out in the middle of nowhere. You know, there's a little creek down here, by the way, and boat ramps and, you know, things like that. I haven't ran a lot of sand, although I have ran a lot of Luss Hill dirt, which is almost like sand, and the bike just eats it up. Like I said, that's also probably why I wear out things like chains, and I have to continuously change my air filters because, you know, the dust and things like that. Otherwise, I use the bike. And this is something I did this last night. I just wanted to go for a ride. And we have these beautiful black, you know, 2-lane blacktops all over Iowa. And I can easily just hop on this thing and, you know, find myself 100 miles later, just very relaxed and feeling good. And especially in the evening, it just, you know, good low speed, you know, 50, 55, 60, 65 rides, mile-an-hour rides. It just does that so well. The bike is very comfortable on the highway. It's almost, you know, it's a very cushy suspension for riding on the blacktop. I enjoy it a lot, and that also means that, you know, if I want to go, I went to Guthrie County last week to go dirt road riding, and I took from my house about 22 miles of pavement. Got there, got on the back roads, banged around back there for an hour or two, then I hopped back on the pavement and ran home. You know, and this bike does that very well. I've taken long trips. The longest trip I took on this bike was 370 some miles, I think, in one day, and that was all on pavement. And it wasn't great. I didn't like it. It was comfortable enough, but the bike was slow. I did not have this good fairing on here yet, so I was beaten to death by the wind. So talk about problems that I've had with the bike. Let's go to the seat. The original seat, when I got it, it seemed hard, and it took me about 1,000 miles to get used to it. And then as time wore on, about 8,500 miles, I found that when I got on the seat, I sunk right to the bars. You know, the bike, the seat had just given up. So I got myself this, it's called a comfort seat or a touring seat. And it seems to be, I don't know if it's shaped any differently, but it seems to be. And it's supposed to be a denser foam. So that worked out pretty good. I like that. Other issues, I already talked about the back tire mudding up and things like that. The mirrors, you know, I talked about that earlier. I needed to bump them out because they weren't in a good spot. The elephant in the room as far as problem goes with this bike was I had certain 2021 in particular, I think, had what they call the stalling problem. That's where you come up to a stop sign, pull the clutch in, and the motor just dies. And that happened quite a bit. And when I initially got the bike, the first day, it just was terrible. And they saw right it'll come out of it, and it did. It got about 80% of it gone, you know. And but it was still there. And I would, you know, as I rode, I got more miles, you know. And I think in the first 3 or 4 or 5 days, I put something like 1,200 or 1,700 miles on the bike, just having so much fun. I didn't want to give it up, didn't want to go back into the dealer, and so I put up with it and kind of learned how to live with it. And anyway, that went on. Finally, one day, I took it into the dealer and said, I got a stalling problem. They Baxtercycle.com, check them out. They messed with it. They said run in the back. They messed with it for half an hour, and of the problem that was left, they almost cured it. It was just almost gone, and I was very happy about that. And I lived with it. I took it out, and it was just great. You know, it was a whole new motorcycle. Just loved it. But the stalling problem was still there. It wasn't like it was, but it was there. So time went on. I drove up there one day and took it in. I said, what can I do? Would I need to make an appointment? They said, roll in the back. And they did some sort of magic wizardry. You know, they messed with the computer. They did this, they did that. They adjusted that and did this and some other things. And that bike has not stalled once since they've done that. And that's, I put about 600 or 800 miles on since then. Not only does it not stall, it runs a lot better, and my fuel economy has actually increased. I was getting in the high 50s, now I'm getting in the low 60s. So it's a significant amount of change. There are other factors that may weigh in on that. You know, I put a new chain on and things like that. But anyway, so the stalling problem was a big problem. Baxtercycle, when I made them aware of it, immediately dealt with the problem. Other issues I've had with the motorcycle, the chain, I wore the chain out. That was something that had to happen, you know, eventually. And the book said it would wear out at 9,000. I changed it at 9,300, and I think I should have changed it to probably 8,500. And I'd actually literally, you know, I wore it all the way. It was just almost no more adjustment left in it. I took the chain off, put the new one on, new sprocket on the front, new sprocket on the back. and it ran so much better. The bike just works so much better. Another problem I had was the vibration in this area, this general area. And the first thing that started vibrating, there's a little light in there, and that had fallen apart. And that's a common problem, I guess. There's a little bumblebee there. So I went to Baxter's. They gave me a new one for free. They actually offered to fix it, but I did it myself. Then this started vibrating, this thing. So I put this rubber on there, and I cured that for a while. And then this started vibrating here. And so I put some tape on that, and that kind of cured that, and I was really happy with that. And then it was at that point, one day I just got these terrible amount of vibration. It was this. And I tightened it up, fixed it for, you know, a minute, and by the next day I was doing it again, and that's when I had to rebuild that hole. Beyond that, I don't think I've had much. I'm sure I'm missing something. I've not had any trouble with the brakes, zero problems with the suspension. The motor has been, other than the stalling problem, has been an absolute charm. One of the Okay, we have made our way to Prairie Rose State Park in Shelby County. Beautiful park known for its owls and this beautiful lake. Himalayan. So what is this bike? What is this bike not? And I would say the first thing you need to know is it is not fast. If you need to go fast, this is not the bike for you. If you need to have fun, this is the bike for you. But you know, it's a big loping 400cc, 411cc, high torque, low horsepower engine. Probably lasts forever. I've got over 10,000 on this one, and it's just running like a charm. But it's just not going to be a fast bike. So what is this bike? What else can I do with this bike? What are things that I have not done with this bike that I would like to do? Motor camping. A lot of guys, I haven't had that opportunity yet. I've got all the camping gear, but every time I get somewhere, I get a hotel room. I'm old, what can I say? I think this would be a great bike for that. Something I think this bike would do really well, if let's say you wanted to see America and you wanted to see the back roads of America. That means the 2-lane blacktop and gravel and dirt roads and, you know, the back parks and things like that, and you didn't mind going 65 miles an hour or less the whole time. This bike, I think, would do it beautifully. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is it's so nice and well-mannered. It's stable, it's predictable, it's got this big front tire, it'll go just about anywhere. And the other is, if you're doing that kind of running, it takes, I have just a few tools in here. Everything that's in the toolkit, plus a set of Allen wrenches. And you know, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you had to change the spark plug or adjust the valves, you know, it's so simple to do on this motorcycle. It's just so easy to do on this bike. And I think if you wanted to see America, you know, burn a tank of gas in the morning and then burn a tank of gas in the afternoon at 60-65 miles an hour, I think you could cross the continent several times on this particular motorcycle, especially if you know how to do your own adjustments, valve adjustments and things like that. The valve adjustments, by the way, are every 6,000 miles. And the two valve adjustments that I've done, I did the original valve adjustment at 300 miles, and the other one I did, I think, at 5,500. And it was within specs both times. So, you know, Wahoo, huh? But so those are some of the things I think this bike I would like to do yet. I would like to go motor camping with it. I wouldn't need all the super gear. I'd camp light like a, you know, like a bicycle camper or a hiker or something like that. And the other one I'd like to do is, I think when the time comes, I think you could really see America on a bike like this. So I'd like to conclude by saying, this is the funnest. I've owned a lot of motorcycles. I'm going to throw that out there. I have owned a lot of motorcycles in my life. I started riding at 9 years old. And this is the funnest single motorcycle I have ever owned in my life. And that's saying a lot, because I've had a lot of really fun bikes. And I will tell you that the Royal Enfield Himalayan, this one in particular, with all its warts and everything we've had to do to keep her going right, which hasn't been much, and I've had great dealer support from Baxter Cycling, and I really appreciate that. I would say this is my favorite overall motorcycle ever. More smiles per mile, as the saying goes, than any other bike I've ever owned in my life. I just love this thing. If I had to get rid of it tomorrow, I would not. Anyway, hey y'all, get out there and ride, enjoy life. It's too short. Get out there and ride and have a good time. Wahoo!